Welcome to Small Business Success Talks Summer of Strategy series, where I interview guests to get their expertise in marketing and business development to help us all plan accordingly for the rest of 2023. Summer is a perfect time to evaluate how well, or maybe not so well, the year is going, determine what the gaps are, and learn from some of the best in the business building industry, their strategies and tactics to close the gap and build momentum in your own business and life. I am your host, Christy Smallwood, and let's get strategic. So Robin, thank you so much for being my guest on this episode during the Summer of Strategy for Small Business Success Talk. I appreciate that very much. And it's good to get to know you. You're part of my marketing podcast network people. So tell me, I have a question that's a little different for my strategy guests. You ready?
Go for it.
What would you want people to know about you before you even walk in the room?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Great question. So, I mean, well, there's a thing about business coaches, right, where people have these preformed ideas about what is a business coach, and typically they're very grey-haired, suited and booted. No offense to anybody who is grey-haired or wears a suit. But, you know, those sorts of preconceived ideas, I'm kind of at the polar opposite end of that. So for me, I want business to be fun, comfortable as well, like t-shirt and jeans type comfortable, rather than, I see far too many business coaches taking things like way too seriously. And quite often it has the opposite impact for the business owners, because running a small business can be quite scary, especially if you're in sort of startup land. So the last thing you want to do is end up with like a business owner who's like rabbit in their headlights, being told that they need to do stuff that they're really struggling to see how they're actually going to do it. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. All right. So give me a little background on your expertise, because I loved reading the information that you gave me, but just fill me in on like all of the stuff I see in your background. I mean, you have books going on back there. So tell me more about Fearless and some of those books that I see.
Yeah, of course. So I'll rewind a little bit before Fearless, just so you get context. I've been running businesses for close to 20 years now. My first business was a marketing agency. So we did web design and branding. So very geeky. I was very introverted. We quietly grew that business to about 250K over 12 years. And then I sold it. And I sold it because I was miserable, basically.
I have a marketing agency. I know exactly what that feeling is.
Well, it was a bit, the reason for it is, so I loved the work. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Absolutely loved building websites. I loved the branding work. The clients were lovely. But the trouble is, I didn't know back then what I know now about business, since I got into very heavily in the last couple of years of that business into personal development, self-development. For some reason, when I left university, I thought I had then the right to not read any more books. And that was the biggest mistake I've ever made, right? Especially when it comes to business.
Sure.
Because, if I just read a couple of books a year throughout those first sort of 7, 8 years in business, I'd been light years ahead of where we got to. And where we ended up was that we had, this relatively successful, small local sort of marketing agency, but 120 bosses in our clients. And I felt very subservient to them. And also I had a small team, very dysfunctional team, possibly because it was managed by me, but four people who, we got on really well, like socially, but business wise, it always felt stressful and I couldn't quite figure out sort of what was going on there. So I kind of stepped away from the agency, gave my wife a bit of a shock, because I just came home one day off a bike ride and just went, darling, I've got some good news and some bad news. I finally decided what I want to do, but one of those decisions involves closing the agency. And she's 8 months pregnant at this point with our first baby. International sign of distress went out, right? But during that time off, I worked with a coach myself, a life coach, and he said, have you ever thought about doing, being a business coach? My immediate thought was, because we all know what business coaching sort of means, what the industry is like, right? But ultimately that's what people punch into Google and search for, so it made sense. But there was a couple of really cool things which we learned in the last 2 years of the agency. So one, which I hope we're going to talk about today, was pricing. So nobody associates like branding with being a product. How do you productize something like branding, right? It's traditionally sold as an hourly rate service. It's rarely sold as like a product. And so during those last couple of years, we managed to create these this one-day branding workshop with our clients, where essentially it was like a logo design in a day. And one day somebody asked me if we could have one. This was like a Friday, and they were doing a product launch by Thursday, and could they get a logo done in the next 3 days? So I was like, yeah, okay, but you're going to have to pay for it. So we ended up charging triple our hourly, what our traditional hourly rate had been. And because they had it quick, we knew that we could provide a great quality service. Then we got a designer in, I ran the workshop, client comes in, they get their logo designed in a day, we give them a 2-page style guide, they know exactly what they're doing with their product launch, away we go, massive success. And in those last 2 years, we actually sold about 40 of those. It became like our hero product.
Right.
And when I sold the agency, a load of people started asking me, well, we saw you sold your agency. Could you help us do that? Varying different sorts of businesses. So I started doing a bit of sort of mentoring and things like that, eventually settled on business coaching. How Fearless kind of fits into this. So I'm a cyclist and surfer, and I've done a few crazy things, like gone down a hill at 52.5 miles an hour on a push bike. I've surfed like 10-foot waves down in Morocco, and various things.
I kind of need to go on a slight tangent and off the rails, whatever you want to call it. Something about some sort of world record.
Oh, Guinness World Record. Yeah, well, that wasn't just me. So I took part in the largest speed networking event at the time. So I think we had something like, in fact, I've got it. It's over there in the corner. I can grab it for you if you want. But I think it was 597 people who took part in it at the time. So
okay, I cannot even imagine being the facilitator of that event. Wow. Okay. Well, we may come back to that. So keep going. So Fearless, you're surfer.
So where Fearless came from.
Yes.
Yeah. So I started working with clients and doing a bit of mentoring, coaching, and things like that. And then I did a talk, and a bit of my story came up about the cycling and surfing. And somebody asked me in the audience, how does that, what relevance does this have to business? And probably some of your listeners might be thinking that too. And I just turned around and said, well, if I looked at those waves, or if I watched the Tour de France and saw how fast those guys come down, and I see how hard they fall when they come off their surfboard or bicycle, I probably wouldn't do it. But in that moment, when I'm at the top of the hill or about to take off from a wave, you have to fear that ever so slightly less than you would ordinarily, just to get through that little hump and achieve the goal that you set out to achieve. And I think when it comes, and a really good friend of mine was in the audience, there's about 80 people, and he just pointed at me and he went, it's a Fearless business coach. And so that's where Fearless Business came from. But it's all about helping business owners that ordinarily they would see something like imagine picking up the phone and having a sales conversation, right? 90% of business owners are just too afraid of doing that, because what are they afraid? Their fear is rejection. Pick up the phone, they won't like me, they'll say no, and they won't buy my service. I'll feel rubbish and my business will fail. Maybe standing up in front of an audience and doing a 60-second pitch. That's terrifying to a majority of business owners, right? But if you can just suck it up for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and just get over that hump, your world all of a sudden just opens up.
You say that. So I have a speaker friend of mine who shared a keynote from a stage, and he says 1 moment of boldness, 10 seconds of boldness can change someone's life. And I've added, so it's over here on this whiteboard, and I've added a note to myself, including yours, Christy. So as a reminder, it's like, it only takes like 10 seconds of just do it. Like, don't overthink it. Just do it. Get over, like you said, get over that hump, and it can change. Like, it's a game changer just to be able to do that. So kudos to you. Love it.
That's it. We used to have, when I enrolled a client, they're not very environmentally friendly, so we stopped doing them. But I used to give people a silicone band when they joined, and on it, it would have Fearless Business and then #JFDI. Yeah.
Yes. We're going to include that #JFDI. I love it.
For those wondering, that's an evolution on Nike's famous strap line, which was just do it. So yeah, you can guess what the F stands for.
You can add whatever F word you want in there. Yeah. Mine will be, and I say, because this is my podcast, I can do whatever I want. It's just fucking do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly what that is. Okay, awesome. All right. So based on your expertise, and I know like you and I in the green room talked about this pricing, because this is a big deal for a lot of business owners that I talk with, because they'll sometimes ask me, and depending on the industry or depending on the thing, or if it's business to business or business to consumer, sometimes I can be helpful. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea. So what advice would you give small business around this? Let's talk pricing for a second.
Yeah. So the first question, which in fact, I'll ask it to you because you'll likely give me a similar answer to what everybody else says.
Oh, great.
So,
I love
Christy,
being on the spot so much.
when you're setting your price, I should have warned you about this in advance.
It's okay. Everybody does it to me. I'm kind of used to it now.
When you're coming up with prices for something, how do you typically go about choosing your prices?
When I started, I would look at kind of the average of what everybody else was doing and just picked something.
Yeah. And that's what most people do.
Yeah.
Well, that's flawed. And the reason why is, how do you know? So when you've looked at those other businesses and you've essentially copied their prices, or, modeled success, as some people call it, but you've essentially copied their prices. How do you know that that's actually working for them? How do you know they've got a profitable business behind the scenes? So you're effectively about to copy a potentially flawed business model. Okay. The other challenge with when you're looking at your competitors' prices is that there's really only three options. You chose the middle one, which is let's go in the middle. It's the average, it's a safe place to play.
Risk, right? Yes.
Yeah. The other option number two is we go in at the cheapest because we think that's how we attract clients. We'll undercut everybody else. We'll get all of the, capture the market. Great if you're like a big supermarket or you've got, products which are like, sell millions of, because you want to go and capture the market share and then jack your prices back up again to create profit. But it doesn't work in the small business world because if you copy this, if you're charging the lowest amount, probably you're not making a great deal of profit and you won't be around for very long. So again, flawed business model. Also, when you sell something cheap, what you're signaling to the market is, we're not exclusive. We've got a ton of these things. And if it's with me, for example, I like things to be slightly rare, slightly unique, slightly different. I like, the red rope in the nightclub, the restaurant with the queue going up the outside of it. Those tell me that those things are exclusive. When you see something that's like mass market, stack them high, sell them cheap, it's sending the wrong signal to your market. And then the final one, and this is where it gets really interesting, Christy, is there is only one person in that market who is the most expensive. Okay. And when you actually start to break it down and look at them, there's a few clues here. And as business owners, you need to be like Inspector Cluedo. You need to like really look at all of the different, clues about why that business is the most expensive. And typically they've got the most reviews on Trustpilot or Google. Typically they've been around probably longer than most of their competitors. But they're charging the most amount of money and yet they're still able to get clients. Right. So if they can be the most expensive and still win business, why can't we? And a lot of business owners, they might look at the most expensive in their market and perhaps get a bit of imposter syndrome. It's perfectly normal, a bit of comparisonitis. But the way I look at it is, right, we've got to start somewhere. If somebody else has done it, great. It means I can easily, not easily, but I can achieve that as well. I can get there. And we don't just go in straight at being the most expensive. What we want to do is we want to work just a little bit outside our comfort zone with each step up that we make with our pricing. So I'm going to invite you, Christy, to be a stooge in this podcast. And I'm going to do a bit of coaching with you. Is that okay?
Of course.
I was very reluctant, but thank you.
I say that because there's another episode that's out here with my marketing mavens gals where they've called me out on my shit for not getting my own content done in my audiobook and things like that. I'm like,
well, that's just mean. I'm not going to be mean, Christy.
Thanks. I mean, they're my friends too, and it pushes me to get things done, which is great. But I will say, me being a host for these shows is probably one of the biggest personal professional development tools I have, because you guys are coming into my world while we're sharing it with the audience. I'm the one that gets the most benefits. So thanks. Yes. And go. I'm willing to do this. Got it.
Right. So Christy, is there a product or service that you're thinking at the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, I'd love to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to share it with us?
Retreats.
Retreats. Okay, cool. So tell me a little bit more about the retreats.
So, I would like to be able to do mixed leadership retreats, field trip style, that incorporates going to other experience-based businesses such as Disney, or even a disco ball manufacturer, or something that includes another business experience that ties into the retreat itself for leadership.
That sounds really cool, by the way. Cool. Okay. Have you thought about how much you might charge for it yet?
No, because
Okay,
I don't
good.
even know where to start.
Okay. If you had to pluck a number out, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the sort of coaching with you on this first, and then I'll do a little bit of a breakdown of it afterwards, if that's okay. So
Perfect.
just if you can, just roll with it and just say what you're thinking, basically. But
And I
imagine,
will say a side note to the audience. If you are not taking notes, now's the time to get your notepad, because he's walking me through the actual process. So you want to take advantage of this. All right. So back to us. Okay, go.
cool. So if you were going to just, get your first 10 people onto that amazing like business experience retreat, how much do you think you might charge for it?
Because it's experience based, it would depend on the base expenses of what it takes to get there, the wherever, like say we stay overnight, what is, like, so all of the base expenses of food, lodging, and the experience itself.
Mhm.
And then add a little more for my services.
So what's the number? What do you reckon that would come out at?
Well, the current one I have on the table, I know is so underpriced. It's $1,200,
Wow. Okay.
and it's a 3-day retreat to Orlando.
It's a bargain, folks. If you're listening to this, if you see a link to that anywhere, buy it now, because it's not going to be this cheap ever again. Okay.
No, and there's
Right,
also
Christy.
one day at Disney for that. So I know, like, I'm cutting I'm not making much out of this because it's a beta test, but I've rationalized it's a beta test too. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So so there's a clue there. So that's how most people try and solve pricing problems. They try and solve them intellectually, and there's an alternative to that, which is an emotional level. We're going to come on to that. Okay. So you've kind of said, but not said, that this is a bit cheap, and you've rationalized it. So $1,200 for that. And I know how expensive Disney is, because we're actually looking to book there for my wife's 40th in March next year. So
I can help you with that, by the way.
thank you. So $1,200. Is there a world in your future? So future, let's say 12 months or 2 years into Christy's future, where future Christy is charging $15,000 for this?
Oh, I would really like that.
Cool.
Would be fantastic.
Okay, great. So this is where we come into this concept of like pricing bandwidth. Most people think that pricing is binary. So they think it's either too cheap or too expensive. It's a yes or a no. I'm in or I'm out, like, and all of the emotions and everything that comes along with that. So they see it as being very binary. But what we've established is bandwidth. Pricing has bandwidth. So your bandwidth for your retreats at the moment is between $1,200 at this end and $15,000 at this end. So the bandwidth there is got to do some math, Robin, $13,800. Right? Okay. There's 13,800 numbers that we could choose to price it at. And there's a point in there where we switch between the intellectual side of it and the emotional side of it, which I'm about to do with you. Okay. So I'm going to say some numbers. You don't have to say anything. Just focus on the number and look at me, and your body will probably tell me when we reach a certain sort of limit. So $1,200. Okay. 1,500, 1,800, 2,500, 3,000, 3,600, 4,000. There we go. So your intellect is like $1,200. Your heart is telling you you should be selling this between $3,600 and $4,200.
Okay.
More than 3 times the price. So I don't know if this is going out as a video, but
it is.
Okay, is it on iTunes as well?
Yes.
So audio only. So for the audio only people, what happened there was I was just tuning into Christy's body language, and she just, like, everybody has a tell. It's like poker, where we hit that slightly uncomfortable number, Christy, you raised your head a little bit, and it was like a knowing, yeah, we're there. Like, I don't know if you were aware of it. You might want to watch it back afterwards. Okay.
Yeah. And I know whenever I just like, pursed my lips together, I was like, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's it. And you wanted to say that, but you didn't.
Yes.
Bless you. Kind of just kept it. You were trying to keep your poker face, but you didn't. Yeah, I could see it. So Christy's like subconscious there is telling us that 3-6 was just about inside her comfort zone. 4-2 was just about outside. And my recommendation would be for cohort number 2 to push yourself just outside the comfort zone and sell it at 4-2.
Okay.
And it's as simple as that. And what happens next is that now I know for a retreat, obviously you want to get a set number of people in here. So you're going to have to you may have to pitch this to 30 or 40 people to get those, say 10 people booked onto, I don't know what the numbers are. We haven't discussed that, but sure. Let's call it 10 people. So you're going to have to do what we call get oversubscribed. You want to get 30 or 40 registrations of interest to give yourself the certain level of numbers to be able to pitch this to, and sell to at least 10 people. A good conversion rate for sort of most service-based businesses is in the region about 1 in 5 to 1 in 3. So if we round those numbers as percentages, between about 20 and 40%. Yeah. So if this wasn't a retreat, if it was just a coaching product, what I would do now is I'd actually have a bet with you. I'd be like, Christy, go and pitch it to 10 people at 4-2. And if at least 1, 2, or 3 of those people don't say yes to you, so if you don't get at least one person out of those 10 saying yes at 4-2, I will buy a place on your retreat for $4,200.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we have evidence. It's recorded, and we have witnesses. Okay. It's as simple as that. And what we do is you sell the next retreat, 4,200. You'll sell your 10 seats, and then we go through the process again. And because now you've sold it, you're probably going to be a bit more confident. I'm guessing that you sold some. And okay, so could we go to 6K for the next cohort? Could we go to 9K for the next cohort? Next, 4 or 5 cohorts time of doing the retreat, you're at 15K. And like, how did I get here? Nice, small, incremental steps that were just a little tiny bit outside your comfort zone.
Wow. Okay. So that works. I mean, obviously I'm talking about a retreat. Does that same concept work for like a business to consumer kind of product?
So, like tins of baked beans, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've all seen it. So here in the UK, I'm guessing it's probably similar in the US. You'll have like your own brand, Sainsbury's own brand baked beans, which are like 30p a tin or 30 cents a tin. You'll have Heinz baked beans, which are like $2 a tin. And then you go into Whole Foods and then they've got their organic, whatever, for like $5 a bag because they don't use tins because we sell stuff in bags at Whole Foods, right?
Right.
But imagine this, they're all the same beans, right? Just all branded and packaged up ever so slightly differently. So this is where one of the things that I would say is we don't just take a product and jack the price up and add no extra value within it. What we try and do is when you increase your prices, well, actually, no, let me approach this in a slightly different way, if that's okay, Christy. Yeah. So there's something which exists called the sales cycle of doom. Okay, so this is where you sell something really cheap and commoditized. It's like it's the sales cycle of doom goes like this: sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver. Oh, I need a holiday, or I get ill, or my kids have a break from school. Sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, and it carries on like that. But when you charge more for something, it's like the universe expands. So now if you charge more for it, you get a bit more money in, which buys you a bit more time to deliver a better quality product or service, which means you get better reviews at the other end of it, and more income off the back end of it, typically because there are follow-on products or additional, services. And the cycle starts again, but the whole world sort of slows down. And it doesn't matter whether it's a consumer goods product, whether it's a service which somebody is selling. If you package it up right, and you keep on adding value and find creative ways to make it better, and you've got the extra money revenue to be able to continue to make it better, it's like a positive cycle.
Yes, I can see that. And why do we not stop ourselves long enough to look at that?
Because the magic numbers I mentioned, imagine, so where I said the conversion rate optimally needs to be 1 in 5 to 1 in 3, so 20 to 40%. It means that there's like an inherent amount of failure built into a business with those numbers. You're getting more no's than you're getting yeses. And human beings hate being told no.
Absolutely.
Think about what it's like. You tell a 7-year-old, no, you can't do that. What do? They immediately go and do the thing, right, that you told them not to do. Adults are just grown-up children, right? So when we get no, when somebody says no, we don't like it.
Watch me, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah. Human beings like to be liked, basically. And so when you're trying to sell something and you're getting more no's, it feels like there's a rejection there. But actually, what is a business? Well, a business isn't you. A business is a separate entity to you. Okay. So if you've got money mindset wobbles and fear of rejection and all of this stuff going on, and you connect that into your business, what happens? Your business is like all over the place as well. Mm-hmm. So mindset wise, you want to, excuse me, you might have to just pause for a moment if that's okay, Christy. I'm good. So we've got that wobble effect going on where you bring your mindset issues into a business and it sets the business off, whereas we want to separate the two off. And so the goal in business is to make profit. Profit helps us to build really solid, stable foundations for our business, and we can build off of those foundations. If Robin comes in with his own issues and starts doing that, it's like an earthquake. The whole thing's just going to fall apart eventually. And this is kind of what's going on in that whole rejection thing. So we do what's right for the business. We accept that rejection is just part of it. The goal is to get more no's than yeses, with a view that the yeses we get will create a sustainable, profitable business based on recurring revenue in it.
Right.
And then we deal with our own shit in our own good time.
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've been dealing with my shit a lot lately this year. So everything else has been a little bit just staying normal while I work on this over here, because I understand the whole mindset thing. Whatever I'm bringing to the table is how everybody else is going to feel around the table. So I need to make sure I'm solid. So I have my own coaches all over the place, mentors, accountability partners. It's like, it's all hands on deck this year. Let's level me up and make me solid. So this has been great conversation so far. We're not done yet. So if you were to tell a small business, like you walked me through this process, but where do we start in even thinking about it? Like, how do we start thinking about it if we're starting new, or how do we go back and reevaluate? Is it going through that process that you walked me through, or is there something like pre-work? What else do we need to do around this and then getting that out into the world? Because because I say these are great numbers, how do I actually do it?
Great question. Really great question. I'm glad you asked that. Yes. So there is a little bit of pre-work that we do. So the pricing part is only sort of one piece of the puzzle. We have to, my experience is mostly service client businesses. So it's easier for me if I speak more so about that rather than business to consumer type businesses or product businesses. So I work a lot with coaches, consultants, and freelancers. And traditionally, the way that services are sold is like time for money, hourly rates or day rates, basically. But the challenge with hourly rates is it immediately limits your earnings potential. And the reasons are, so if you're a consultant, you're charging $50 an hour and your goal is to make 100 grand a year. Well, there's only a finite number of hours typically that you're able to work. So most people, even as a business owner, still seem to base their hours around 9 to 5. So there's 2,000 hours a year that you could potentially work, right? 2,000 times by 50 gives us 100 grand. But what's not taken into consideration there is the fact that you might get ill. You've got to take holidays. You've got to do a bit of marketing, admin, bookkeeping. There's maybe training teams up, going to networking meetings, just faffing and procrastination and all this other stuff. And so what I've noticed is that most service client businesses probably only spend about a day a week delivering. So if you take a day a week at $50 an hour and multiply it out for the year, your earnings capacity is limited to like 20 grand, 20 to 40K, say, which for most isn't enough. So we've got to completely, like, hourly rates are fundamentally flawed, right? And I can give some examples of this. So imagine, Christy, for your retreat, you need to get a website built for it, specifically for it. Okay. And I'm going to bring in a beauty parade of web designers for you. So 3 web designers. Okay. Web designer number 1 comes in. Let's call her Stephanie. So Stephanie comes in and she says, Christy, I can build you your website. I think it will take me about 20 hours and I'll charge you $50 an hour for that. Is that good? You down with that?
Sure. We're going to say yes for the sake of this conversation.
$1,000. Yeah. Okay. That sounds about right for a basic website for a retreat. Okay, great. So off Christy toddles, not Christy, Stephanie toddles. So Stephanie toddles off. But what Stephanie forgot to tell you was that she's not been doing it for very long. Because she's not charging enough, she's taken on too many clients, because she's great at marketing, very, affable and like great person, but like she's just taken on too many clients now. So eventually 3 months later, she comes back, and she's quite inexperienced, comes back with the website, doesn't have the blog or the shopping cart, so nobody can find out more about the retreat or buy it.
Not helpful.
What do you think?
I'm not happy at all about that situation.
Not happy. Okay. And what do you want Stephanie to do with that?
Fix it.
Fix it. Okay. So Stephanie's going to fix it, but then she drops this on you. Well, I didn't realize it was included to start with, so I'm gonna have to charge you the extra 10 hours it will take.
No, it should have been included in the first place.
It should have been. So you're now pissed off. Stephanie reluctantly agrees to do it within the price, but she's also pissed off. Like, nobody wins out of that relationship. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that not all web designers work like this. Okay. So, right. So Stephanie dealt with already getting clues that hourly rates don't really work very well. Okay. Dave comes in, web designer number 2. Dave's brilliant, really experienced, been doing it a while. And he turns around and says, great, Stephanie, I can do it $50 an hour for you. But because Dave's really good at it, it only takes him 10 chargeable hours to build a site, get the blog, the shopping cart, everything that you need on it. It's exactly what you want. That's a good deal, right?
Sounds
like half the price of what Stephanie charged. You did it a little bit quicker and a little bit better. But it's a bit unfair on Dave. He's like more experienced, gets it done faster, produces better results, yet he gets paid less than what the inexperienced person does who's not very good at running a business. It doesn't work, right? So there's our second clue that hourly rates are fundamentally flawed. Okay. So Stephanie's send Dave on his way as well. Actually, we might use Dave. We'll keep Dave just on the back burner because we might need him later. Okay. Now, Liz comes into the picture. Liz is a website ninja. She can build you your ultimate website in 3 days. Within the first 30 days after launch, it will be producing about 15 to 20 organic leads for your retreats each and every month. If it doesn't do that, she'll give you a full refund and she'll pay you $1,000 for wasting your time. Who do you want to use?
I mean, that's a secure deal. So I would use Liz.
And
I didn't even ask about the price.
No.
Because it's all about me getting what I want.
Cool. Ask me the price. Just throw that. Let's ask Liz how much she charges.
All right. So how much will that cost me, Liz?
Cool. $10,000. And I need all of that up front, please.
Whew. But if I'm getting all the leads and my retreats a success, I'll find the $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So it's 10 times the price of what Stephanie was charging, 20 times the price of what Dave was charging, but you get guaranteed results and money back if it all goes to pot and doesn't work, which you can then go and book Dave, to build you another website if needs be. But here's the thing, here's the catch, right? So what's going on there is that effectively Liz is selling her websites based on the dream outcome for her client. She shines a spotlight on her client, figures out exactly what it is that they want, what would be a great result for them, and she delivers that. What she's not delivering is a blog, a shopping cart. She's not fussed about HTML standards compliance or any of that jazz. Like, all of that just happens because that's like, it's like, if you want a car to get you from A to B, if it's got wheels and an engine and a chassis and everything, we don't care about that stuff. What we most care about is how we're going to feel when we get in it and put our foot down, right? So that dream outcome needs to be what we sell. That's the value proposition. The second thing, which I kind of alluded to there. Yeah.
I'm going to pause you for a hot second.
So the second thing, which most business owners are most fearful of, is money back guarantees. So you will be having an idea. For example, let's stick with your retreats for now, Christy, that you'll want something for your clients who come to those retreats to leave feeling, knowing, having experienced like something great, right? Could you offer a money back guarantee on that?
Is I think to myself, if I've managed my money well, then yes, I could, because you shouldn't spend it before you got it. So yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, you want your reputation to be protected. You want people to have a fantastic experience and come away with, like, having learned something new or felt something or experienced something different, and their business
Absolutely.
ready to kick on, right? So if somebody's come along and had a poor experience, ethically you wouldn't want to keep their money anyway. Now, most business owners, though, when it comes to money back guarantees, the first thing they always say to me is, well, Robin, it depends. Okay. And it depends is actually a swear word in Fearless. Okay. We don't allow it in Fearless land, in the Fearless crew, because what it depends actually tells me is that there are too many variables in the business. So we're not clear on who our ideal client is. We're not clear on what our product does or how to deliver it. We don't have standard operating procedures, SOPs, to deliver the same system process, to deliver that same outcome, predictable outcome for each of the different clients. When you productize a service, using Liz's example, what it comes down to is that and this is what I think people need to, if you don't come away from anything else out of this interview, this podcast, write this down. You need to do one thing really well for one specific audience. When you nail that, you become known as an expert. So if Liz's speciality is building lead gen websites for coaches, she's nailed it. There's hundreds of thousands of coaches out there who need help with their marketing, right? Mm-hmm. And there's 1,000,001 different marketing things that you could do. But if all Liz is doing is building lead gen websites all day in and day out, she's going to be really good at it, right? And so when you do one thing really well for one specific client, you've removed all of the different variables within your business. So your results should be predictable, and that's when you can start to offer those money back guarantees. So if you're thinking about listening to this and thinking about your business, and those words, it depends, crept into your head, you've got to figure out what variables are in there that are spoiling the show as it stands at the moment. There's a slight caveat to this. So sometimes you're not allowed to offer money back guarantees in certain industries. So take therapy, for example. You're not, because it's mind, body, spirit, you're not allowed to offer money back guarantees for those. There's rules and regulations and ethics around it. So in those circumstances, there's something called a perceived value guarantee, which kind of like crosses that gray zone quite nicely. So, excuse me. So how I might pitch that, for example, would be something along the lines of, well, actually, we're going to take you on this transformation. Imagine I'm a therapist. We're going to take you on this transformational journey to help you get from not confident to confident in 12 weeks. Now, I know that I can make that happen. I've made it happen for hundreds of people. But if we get to the end of 12 weeks and you're genuinely not happy with the results, I'll just give you your money back. Because we're not tying it to the promise of fixing somebody or making them more confident or whatever it might be. It's tied to just how they feel emotionally.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Gosh, this has been a lot of great, meaty advice and insight and experience. Thank you for sharing all of that. So, and you've also kind of touched on some things of what not to do, but if you had one big thing of telling small business, don't do this, what would that be?
So a lot of business owners, again, I see them, they're like, they've got to build the perfect product before they launch, right? So they whatever their product or service is, they spend hours like making their product perfect. But I also mean like the business. So they'll got to have the perfect website, got to have the perfect branding, we've got to have the perfect sales funnel, we've got to get MailChimp set up, we've got to they think they've got to do all of these different things. And actually, one of the fastest ways to learn about business is just to get out and sell something. And actually, like, I'm going to now throw out the entire podcast, Christy, because at this point, like, it doesn't matter for how much. Like the price at this point is irrelevant. Get out and just sell something. And you'll learn 90% of everything that you need to know about sales and marketing in doing that. Then you're into client fulfillment. So whatever you've sold, you then got to deliver. You'll then learn everything, or 90% of everything that you need to know about client fulfillment by delivering that first project or product to your clients. So don't try and perfect and build everything before you launch. Just get out, sell something and have a good go. And then like there's two things that could happen here. One, you might have to give somebody a refund, and you're actually no worse off than you were before. You might have used up a little bit of time, but you're actually back to $0 because we just refund whatever they gave us. The second thing that might happen is you might just look a bit stupid. And that's actually not that bad.
It's no bueno, but it's not that bad. It's
in the grand scheme of life.
Right. Grand scheme of life. That's not that bad. I have a book on my shelf, and it is Brass Tacks Entrepreneur. And it was written by a small business owner who, and the biggest thing I take away from the entire advice of that book was the best mentors in business are trial and error. You just got to try it. Like #JFDI.
That's it.
Get out and do it. But then also come back like, okay, I learned this doesn't work. Where can I learn from about things that do work? How can I get better at this? That's why people like us exist. Like, come to the ones who've been there, done that, learn what to do, what not to do, and to be able to, kind of avoid the pitfalls along the way. So you are an amazing coach. Like, just sitting here talking to you, this has been a great conversation for me. So thank you for that. So what do you, Robin, have on that horizon, and how are you going to get there? Like, what's coming up for you?
That's a great question. So I'm actually at the moment in building a piece of software to support my coaching practice, so which I hope will be beneficial to all coaches. So one of the things which I've noticed is providing accountability is straightforward when you've got like a dozen clients. There's a lot of people pivoting now, coaches pivoting into sort of the group environment where they're scaling and getting, many more clients in there. And I've gone through these sort of growing pains myself. And there's a point when you get beyond sort of 20 or 30 clients where it becomes very hard to provide good quality accountability to that many, clients on a regular basis. So I've created an app. It's called Score App, which is kind of in beta at the moment. We're just enrolling our first clients onto it now. So I didn't just do it for my business. I've tried to develop it as a SaaS tool for other coaches to eventually use as well, whereby we're able to, as many clients as you've got in there, you're able to provide accountability on several different layers, from just little nudges. Hey, have you done this thing? Or go and watch that module in the portal, or whatever it might be, right up to creating like a fully blown sort of learning path for each individual client. So when they join a coaching program, they have their like personalized, here's the 10 steps, this will transform your business, go and do those things first, then we'll get you back into the standardized path of our program. And it tips the whole sort of coaching model up on its head. So I'm really excited about that. And eventually we'll be plugging in, we've got some AI tools working in development behind the scenes as well that will start to deliver that accountability once we've got the data, and we'll be able to train it. So that's really exciting.
That's very exciting. Awesome. Well, Robin, thank you so much for being my guest on this episode for Small Business Success Talk. It really has been a pleasure. And thank you for helping me, because now I'm like, all right, this retreat, we're going to get the first one out of the way. But then that next one, I'm going to go through this process and see what that's like for myself and where I would want to take people again and make it just that much better. So thank you for helping make me better today.
It's my pleasure, Christy. Checks in the post, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Robin.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for the Summer of Strategy series on Small Business Success Talk. Remember to share us with your network, leave us a great review, and subscribe for the latest episodes.